Canada, a proud independent country, a global leader in technology, human rights, and maple syrup. But did you know Canada is still officially ruled by a king? Yes. As in King Charles III, the King of the United Kingdom, is also the King of Canada still, in 2025. Which begs the question, why? Didn't Canada get its independence decades ago? Is the king actually in charge of anything? And if not, why is he still part of the system at all? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating quirks of modern democracy, why a country like Canada, which is fully independent, still recognizes the British monarch as its head of state. So, sit tight, because the answer is more complicated and more surprising than you think. To understand how we got here, we have to go back, way back. Canada began as a collection of British and French colonies. After Britain took control in the 1700s, Canada was governed directly by the British Crown, meaning the King or Queen of England literally ruled over the land. In 1867, something big happened. The British Parliament passed the British North America Act. This created the Dominion of Canada. Sounds independent, right? But no, it was still under British control, just with more local decision-making. Then came the Statute of Westminster in 1931, a turning point. This law gave Canada full control over its own laws and foreign policy. But Canada still chose to keep the British monarch as its ceremonial head of state. And then, the final cut came in 1982. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau brought the Canadian Constitution home. With the Canada Act passed in the UK Parliament, Canada gained complete legal independence. So here's the wild part. Even after all that, Canada chose to keep the monarchy. Okay, so King Charles is the King of Canada. But what does that actually mean? Well, Canada is a constitutional monarchy. That means the king is the head of state, but he has zero political power. The real power lies with the elected government, the Prime Minister, and Parliament. So how does the king fit into the system? The king's role is mostly symbolic. His representative in Canada is the Governor-General, appointed on the Prime Minister's advice. The Governor-General does things like formally appointing the Prime Minister, opening Parliament sessions with a ceremonial speech, hosting foreign dignitaries, attending events, and giving out honors. You might be thinking, if the king has no real power and Canada's fully independent, why not just cut ties completely? There are a few reasons, some practical, some emotional. First, there's stability and neutrality. The monarch is seen as a non-political figure, someone who can represent the country without party bias. In times of political crisis or transition, this neutrality can be useful. Then there's tradition and identity. For many Canadians, the monarchy is part of national identity. It's on the money, the passports, even the names of cities, parks, and institutions. But it's also complicated to change. Abolishing the monarchy in Canada isn't easy. It would require a constitutional amendment, and not just any amendment. It would need approval from the federal parliament and all 10 provincial legislatures. And in a country as big and diverse as Canada, getting all provinces to agree on anything is, well, let's say it's not simple. Finally, some say it just doesn't matter. For many Canadians, the monarchy is just background noise. It doesn't affect daily life, so why bother fixing something that isn't broken? But the monarchy isn't without its critics. Many Canadians feel no emotional connection to a British royal family. King Charles doesn't live in Canada, wasn't born in Canada, and doesn't really engage with the Canadian public beyond ceremonial visits. Cost is another issue. The monarchy and Governor-General's office are publicly funded. Critics argue that taxpayer money could be better spent elsewhere. There's also the colonial legacy. For Indigenous peoples in Canada, the Crown represents broken treaties and centuries of injustice. Some leaders have called for severing ties completely as part of decolonization. And polls show that support for the monarchy is declining, especially among younger Canadians. So, will Canada ever cut ties with the monarchy? Possibly, but not anytime soon. While support is shrinking, there's no strong national movement pushing for change. Politicians know it's a legal and political minefield, and right now, the monarchy doesn't really interfere with how the country runs. Some experts think Canada might eventually follow in the footsteps of places like Barbados, which became a republic in 2021, removing the monarch but staying in the Commonwealth. If it happens, it'll likely be a slow, carefully planned shift, not a sudden revolution. So here's the big picture. Canada is fully independent. It makes its own laws, governs its own people, and doesn't take orders from anyone in London. But by tradition, and by choice, it still calls the king its head of state. Not because he rules, but because he represents something older, a system that Canada grew up with, evolved from, and has, for now, chosen to keep.